Imagine posting the absolute best financial quarter your company has seen in over 15 years.
Right.
You're sitting on this wait list of customers, and it's stretching into the hundreds of billions of dollars. You are universally recognized as, the undisputed kingmaker of the global AI boom.
The absolute center of it all.
Exactly. And Wall Street's immediate response to all this spectacular news, they just instantly slash your stock price in half.
It completely shatters the fundamental rules of market logic. I mean, we're conditioned to expect that massive revenue growth, plus these guaranteed future contracts, always results in a soaring valuation.
Right. The line is supposed to go up. But welcome to the deep dive, everyone. We've got a really fascinating stack of financial reports, some analyst notes, and technical architecture specs today, all from mid-March 2026.
Yeah, and it's a wild stack of documents.
It really is. Our mission today is to decode what is arguably the wildest corporate transformation in tech history. We are talking about Oracle. A company that, for decades was basically viewed as the quiet, somewhat boring plumbing of the corporate world, just a legacy database provider.
Right. They were the company you only thought about when your enterprise software license came up for renewal. Like, oh, time to pay the Oracle bill.
Exactly. But today, they've morphed into the single most critical physical infrastructure player in the global artificial intelligence race. And here is the core mystery we're going to solve for you today.
Yeah, the 50% drop.
Right. Oracle just reported explosive, historic Q3 2026 growth, yet their stock plummeted over 50% from its 2025 peak.
So we're going to figure out why this massive disconnect exists and what it actually means for the future of AI.
Because to understand this puzzle, you really have to pull back the curtain on the cloud. I mean, this isn't just a story about software or code or algorithms anymore.
Yeah, not at all.
It's a story about pouring concrete, taking on just mind-bending levels of corporate debt, and this crazy geopolitical battle for who controls the physical infrastructure of the internet. Well, let's start with the numbers that shocked Wall Street in Q3 2026. Because, honestly, they illustrate the sheer, terrifying scale of this AI boom.
They really do. The numbers are staggering.
Yeah. So Oracle's organic total revenue and non-GAAP earnings per share grew over 20%. Their cloud infrastructure skyrocketed 84%.
Which is massive for a company of that size.
Huge. But the number that really jumps off the page in these financial documents is their RPO, the remaining performance obligations.
Right.
That number hit $553 billion, an increase of 325% year over year. Analysts in these sources are actually calling it a wall of money.
Yeah, a wall of money is right. And, RPO is essentially a massive IOU. It represents the total value of contracts that these enterprise customers have signed and committed to.
But the infrastructure isn't there yet.
Exactly. Oracle hasn't actually built or delivered the computing service for those contracts yet.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Because this RPO isn't just cash sitting in an Oracle checking account today, right? It sounds more to me like a wait list for a highly exclusive club.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, like customers are prepaying for VIP tables, meaning the physical space to run their GPUs, just to guarantee they have a seat when the doors finally open.
That analogy absolutely hits the mark, but the motivation behind it is even more extreme. It's essentially a desperate hedge against extinction.
Extinction, wow.
Yeah, I mean, enterprise leaders are looking at the supply chains for silicon. They're seeing the massive backlogs for power transformers and just the sheer real estate required for data centers.
Right, you need actual land.
Exactly. And they've collectively realized that the physical infrastructure required to train these next-generation AI models is strictly finite. They're calling it compute scarcity.
Meaning the computing power they need to run their businesses in, say, 2028, literally might not exist for them to buy if they wait until 2027 to ask for it.
Precisely. Which triggers this strategic panic across the industry. Massive corporations are willingly locking themselves into decade-long contracts with huge upfront prepayments.
Just to call dibs.
Basically, yeah. Not because they need the compute today, but because they are terrified of being completely frozen out of the AI economy entirely.
Well, okay, if everyone is scrambling for a VIP table, the obvious question is, why are they lining up outside Oracle's club?
Right.
Why not the traditional giants like AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud? I mean, combined, AWS and Azure hold over half the general-purpose cloud market.
Well, Oracle looked at that landscape and realized they couldn't outbuild Amazon or Microsoft in a war for general-purpose cloud hosting. So they just bypassed that war entirely.
Well, they just skipped it.
Yeah. They built a highly specialized technological moat. They call it the OCI Zetascale superclusters. They optimize their entire physical architecture for one singular task, which is training massive AI models.
And here's where the technical specs from the sources get really interesting. Because the bottleneck in AI training isn't actually how smart the individual computer chip is.
No, not at all.
The bottleneck is how fast tens of thousands of those chips can talk to each other.
Right, because network latency is basically the silent killer of artificial intelligence. Training a large language model requires thousands of GPUs working in parallel, constantly sharing partial calculations.
Huge group project.
Exactly. And if the network connecting those servers has even a microsecond of delay, those incredibly expensive NVIDIA chips just sit there, they idle, waiting for data to arrive. You end up burning massive amounts of electricity to do absolutely nothing.
Which is incredibly expensive. So the sources outline Oracle's solution to this. It's the Acceleron network, which utilizes something called RDMA over converged Ethernet.
Right, remote direct memory access.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's translate this for a second. If I'm understanding this right, traditional networking is like a warehouse where the central processor, the CPU, is this obsessive micromanager.
Oh, totally.
Every single time a package of data needs to leave the warehouse, the CPU has to personally inspect it, log it in the operating system, and stamp it before it gets on the truck. It's painfully slow.
It is. And RDMA essentially fires the micromanager.
Nice.
Yeah, it allows a network card on one server to reach across the cables and directly read or write to the memory of another server. It completely bypasses the central processor and the operating system of both machines.
So the chips are basically loading the boxes directly onto the trucks themselves.
Exactly. And the result of removing that bureaucracy is just staggering. Oracle achieves a non-blocking bandwidth of 400 gigabits per second with an ultra-low latency of just 2 to 2.5 microseconds.
Wait, 2 microseconds. That is virtually instantaneous.
It really is. And it allows them to link up to 131,772 GPUs in a single unified cluster.
That's insane.
Yeah, that generates 2.4 zettaflops of computing power. And just to put a zettaflop in perspective, we're talking about a system that can process 1 billion trillion operations per second.
1 billion trillion.
Yeah. It could theoretically crunch the entire written history of the internet in a matter of hours. And our sources note this specific architecture gives Oracle 5 times better bandwidth and latency than AWS or Azure.
Wow.
And it actually makes their GPU virtual machines up to 220% cheaper to run.
So they built the ultimate high-speed plumbing for the smartest chips in the world.
Precisely.
But they also coupled that hardware advantage with a brilliant software strategy. The sources detail this multi-cloud approach because historically, tech companies build walled gardens. Right? AWS wants you entirely in AWS.
Right.
But Oracle is literally taking their database racks and physically installing them inside AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud data centers.
Yeah, because they deeply understand the concept of data gravity. I mean, moving petabytes of enterprise data across the public internet to a different cloud provider costs an absolute fortune in egress fees. It's a massive friction point for companies.
So by physically dropping an Oracle server rack inside Amazon's house, a customer can keep their massive data sets living in AWS, but seamlessly run a local fiber cable over to the Oracle hardware.
Right, and utilize those AI supercomputers without the massive transfer fees. It completely eliminates the vendor lock-in that has basically defined the cloud industry for a decade. Oracle just made themselves the universal interoperable layer.
Okay, let's step back and look at the board here. They have the fastest networking plumbing. They have a brilliant multi-cloud strategy tearing down the walled gardens.
Yeah.
And they have $500 billion in IOU sitting on their desk. I mean, this sounds like an absolute flawless victory. So why in the world did Wall Street panic and drop their stock 50%?
Because bridging the gap between a $500 billion promise and a fully functioning Zetascale data center requires a staggering, almost incomprehensible amount of upfront cash.
Right. The bill comes due.
Yeah.
I want to look at these financial breakdowns because the numbers frankly seem absurd.
They do.
Oracle has a capital expenditure budget. Their CapEx of $50 billion for fiscal year 2026 alone. And to even attempt to afford this, they released a financing blueprint to raise up to $50 billion in new capital, including $43 billion in senior notes.
They're basically issuing debt at a scale that resembles a sovereign nation more than a software company.
Wait, hold on. I need to push back on this math for a second. Their total debt has surged 60% to a record $153 billion.
Yeah.
And the interest expenses alone hit $1.18 billion in a single quarter.
Huh.
Plus, the sources show $261 billion in off-balance sheet lease commitments for these data centers.
The numbers are wild.
How is this mathematically sustainable? I mean, if they're borrowing at current interest rates to build this concrete and steel, the math doesn't pencil out against their operating cash flow unless these AI models monetize perfectly from day one. Are they insane?
Well, Wall Street certainly thinks they're walking a tightrope without a net. You have to remember, you have to acquire the land, secure the massive power permits, build the physical cooling infrastructure, and rack the servers years before that RPO money actually turns into recognized revenue.
So what does this all mean? They're basically maxing out the corporate credit cards to build a mega hotel before the guests even arrive.
That's exactly it.
And to afford the interest payments on the construction loan, they're aggressively restructuring the entire company.
Yeah, it is a truly brutal corporate pivot. To free up the $8 to $10 billion in cash flow needed just to service this debt, they are planning massive layoffs. We're talking up to 30,000 jobs in early 2026.
30,000. And they are completely sidelining their Oracle Health division, too.
Right.
They bought Cerner, the massive healthcare records company, just 4 years ago for $28 billion. The goal was to revolutionize digital health. And now, they're essentially abandoning it. They're gutting the house to buy more land.
Sidelining a $28 billion acquisition is a massive admission of sunk costs. They are willingly sacrificing their legacy software dreams to go absolutely all in on physical AI infrastructure.
But here's the thing that really gave me pause reading through this research. Oracle is betting the farm, taking on all this debt, laying off thousands of people. But who exactly are they relying on to pay them back?
This raises an important question, right? This is where we transition from execution risk to systemic risk.
The sources highlight a $300 billion contract with OpenAI that requires 4.5 gigawatts of power.
Which is massive.
Just to contextualize that, 4.5 gigawatts is roughly the power consumption of a major metropolitan city. But the analysts point out a massive underlying vulnerability here. They call it the circular deal.
Right, the circular deal. Because if you track the flow of capital in the AI ecosystem right now, it looks less like a traditional supply chain and more like a closed financial loop.
Okay, let me make sure I have the mechanics of this loop straight. So venture capitalists and big tech companies provide massive funding rounds to OpenAI.
Yep.
OpenAI takes that venture capital and pays it to Oracle to rent this new cloud space. Oracle then takes that exact same money and hands it to NVIDIA to buy the GPUs to put in the data centers.
Follow money, yeah.
And then NVIDIA takes its massive profits and invests them back into OpenAI funding rounds.
Exactly. It's an ecosystem entirely dependent on its own momentum.
Wait, it sounds like an Ouroboros, a snake eating its own tail.
Ah.
If the outside venture capital stops flowing into OpenAI, the whole loop collapses. It's a house of cards.
It really is.
Our sources mention rumors in early 2026 that NVIDIA might pull out of a $100 billion OpenAI funding round due to disputes over chip specifications. If that happens, the snake chokes. Are they building stranded assets?
To understand the gravity of that fear, you really have to look at the historical precedent of the 1999 to 2000 dot-com bubble. Because back then, telecom companies took on catastrophic amounts of debt to lay millions of miles of massive fiber optic networks across the country. They did it because they were relying on the projected demand from internet startups, assuming internet traffic would double every 100 days forever.
Startups that were entirely funded by VC money and had zero actual profits.
Exactly. And when the venture capital dried up and the startups vanished, the telecom companies went bankrupt. They were left holding the bag on billions of dollars of useless dark fiber.
Wow.
Now, Oracle's management has publicly claimed there is zero impact from OpenAI's funding drama, but the market views this closed-loop ecosystem as a massive systemic risk. Because if OpenAI or Anthropic run out of cash, Oracle's multi-billion-dollar gigawatt data centers suddenly have no tenants to pay the rent.
Okay, so we have mind-blowing network architecture, terrifying corporate debt, and the looming ghost of the dot-com bubble.
It's a lot.
It's a ton. But the sources actually take us even further outside Silicon Valley. Oracle's massive physical footprint has basically turned them into a central player in global geopolitics and national security. And the wildest example of this is TikTok.
Oh, yeah. The TikTok USDS joint venture. That was formed in January 2026 to avoid a total ban of the app in the United States.
Now, looking at the TikTok deal, The financial documents note a $10 billion transaction fee was collected by the Trump administration to approve the joint venture. And just to ground us here, I want to be super clear with you listening. Our goal today isn't to weigh in on U.S.-China trade policy or take any political sides.
Right, absolutely. We aren't endorsing any viewpoints here.
Exactly. We are strictly neutrally reporting the contents of these financial sources to see how the mechanics of this highly politicized deal transformed Oracle's business model.
Right. And from a purely structural standpoint, the U.S. government required a strict physical separation of data. ByteDance, the Chinese parent company, was basically forced to step back. So Oracle holds a 15% stake, which is valued around $2 billion. But their real value in this deal is acting as the trusted security partner for 150 million American users.
They're essentially the digital firewall. Oracle's job is to ensure that all American user data is locked inside Oracle Cloud infrastructure, physically located in the U.S., where Chinese engineers cannot access it.
Exactly.
And the cherry on top, they get to run the legendary TikTok content algorithm entirely on OCI. Analysts estimate that generates $800 million a year for Oracle. It's like they've become a digital arms dealer for data sovereignty.
That's a great way to phrase it. They capitalized on the fracture of the global internet. But, they also learned the hard way how incredibly vulnerable they are to those exact same geopolitical forces. Just look at the tariff shock of 2025.
Oh, the 145% U.S.-China tariff.
Yeah. In April 2025, these historic tariffs were slapped on Chinese imports. And because Oracle is now effectively a heavy construction company building gigawatt data centers, they rely heavily on global hardware supply chains.
They need all those physical parts.
Exactly. They need semiconductors, massive industrial cooling systems, and thousands of miles of fiber cables, mostly from Asia.
And that tariff announcement crashed Oracle's stock by 32% almost instantly. It's wild. A software company taken out at the knees by the cost of hardware.
Right, and it forced a realization within the company. Data and infrastructure are becoming heavily nationalized. I mean, you can't just build a massive data center in Texas and expect Japan to comfortably route their government data through it.
Because of the security risk.
Exactly, and that led to the creation of Oracle Alloy.
This is their sovereign cloud offering, right?
Yeah.
The mechanics of it are absolutely fascinating.
That's very clever.
They essentially let foreign nations run their own private Oracle clouds to keep data strictly inside their own borders. The sources mention SoftBank doing this in Japan. But the European Union example is just wild to me.
Yeah, the EU setup is intense.
Oracle literally hired 1,500 EU citizens to manage European data, just to legally prove to regulators that the U.S. government and U.S. employees couldn't touch it. It's like, by selling the architecture and letting Japan or the EU slap their own brand on it, they bypass the political target on their back.
Because we are entering the era of the digital splinternet. The internet is actively fracturing along national borders, and Oracle positioned themselves as really the only cloud provider flexible enough to adapt to a world where a sovereign country demands absolute physical and legal control over its digital infrastructure.
Right.
They're basically selling the picks and shovels, but letting the individual countries claim the gold mine as sovereign territory.
Stepping back, I mean, we've covered a massive amount of ground today, and I want to speak directly to you, the listener, for a second. Why does any of this matter to you?
Why should they care?
Exactly, because the story of Oracle in 2026 proves a fundamental truth about the era we are currently living in. The real battle for artificial intelligence isn't about which chatbot writes the best code or passes a medical exam.
No, the battle is profoundly physical.
It's about concrete.
Yeah.
It is about laying fiber optic cables, securing industrial cooling systems, and sourcing just obscene amounts of electricity. Oracle recognized this and fundamentally transformed their entire corporate identity to meet that physical reality.
They went all in.
But the whole company's fate now rests on one single thing: execution. Can their leadership actually build the data centers fast enough to convert a $553 billion wait list into real spendable cash before the massive debt crushes them?
It's the ultimate test of physical logistics in a purely digital industry.
It really is. But before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to mull over.
Oh, I like these.
We've talked extensively about the financial risks, the staggering debt, the circular deals. We've talked about the political risks with tariffs and data sovereignty. But think about this from a purely technological standpoint.
Okay.
What happens if Oracle executes perfectly?
Like flawless execution.
Flawless. What if they build every single data center on time? The RDMA networking is perfect and the gigawatts of power are flowing smoothly. But what if the AI models themselves hit a plateau in intelligence?
Ah. Because the entire financial model assumes AI just keeps getting exponentially smarter, right?
Yeah,
Requiring exponentially more compute forever.
exactly. What happens to a $500 billion wall of money and hundreds of billions in corporate debt if the AI revolution simply decides to take a nap?
That is a terrifying thought for Wall Street.
Right. It's like taking out a massive high-interest loan to build a state-of-the-art home gym because you are absolutely convinced you're going to become an Olympic powerlifter.
Hmm.
But what if your body just hits its natural genetic limit?
You plateau.
You're still perfectly healthy,
Yeah.
but now you're stuck paying off $1 million worth of heavy weights you don't actually need to lift. Something to think about as you watch the tech world race to build out the future. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. See you next time.